Welcome everyone to Fun Times conversation on exploring the many faces of Black families today. This is a great topic and we're really excited about this discussion. And so we have some amazing panelists with us today. We have Annette Day, Joel Olston, and Dr. Ellen Waller. And again, my name is LaVon Nichols. I am your Fun Times host and moderator of this conversation. So next up, we are going to have our very own Sandra Lawrence open us up with prayer.
Can we bow our heads for a moment of prayer, please? Most gracious, kind, and heavenly Father God, we thank you for coming into the midst of this program. Lord, we are asking you to provide us with additional knowledge and encouragement to broadcast and publicly proclaim that, yes, Black families are strong. Lord, we're asking you to bless all those that are in the sound of my voice. Bless the panelists, Lord. We thank you so much for them to generate their knowledge and expertise. And Lord, we just thank you for this day that you have given us. And we ask all these things humbly unto you. God bless the Creator, and we thank you. Amen.
Now we will have the Black National Anthem.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
We're going to have a message from Sandra Lawrence from our board.
Well, after Lift Every Voice and Sing, on behalf of the Fun Times Board, Advisory Council members, and the Fun Times team, we welcome you this day to hear and be a part of this discussion. We ask you to just be thankful that you're getting knowledge and expertise from those that are respected from our community. And we just want to welcome you and thank our sponsors and everyone for being in attendance. Thank you, thank you, thank you once, thank you twice, thank you 3 times, and welcome.
I love when you do that. Welcome, Miss Sandy. Thank you so much. And we are very excited at Fun Times to have this conversation with the things going on in this world. It is so very important for us to come together as a community and to really fortify our Black families with strength and love and unity. And so having this conversation will do just that. And we hope that it expands and that we're able to talk more about the Black family and the many different aspects that concern the Black family. And so I am very honored to have 3 amazing panelists. I have their bios. I'm going to share a little bit about it, but then we're going to get into the conversation. And so if you will indulge me just a little bit, we have with us Annette Day. She is a licensed clinical social worker in Pennsylvania and in Delaware, and holds a BA in criminal justice and a master's in social work from Temple University. She is a behavioral health therapist for children and adults with extensive experience in nonprofit agencies, focusing on domestic violence and homelessness. Annette worked at Women Against Abuse Incorporated as a housing counselor and director of transitional housing. She has taught at Westchester, Lincoln, and LaSalle universities. Her private practice, Boundary Span LLC, offers education, training, consultation, clinical workshops, and supervision. Welcome her. And we also have Joel Olston. He is the founder and Austin. He is the founder, president, and CEO of Daddy University Incorporated, an executive director of the School of Parent Education, a certified postpartum doula. He champions positive parenting and male engagement. As a father of four, he is dedicated to promoting fatherhood education. Under his leadership, Daddy University, he is the leading authority on fatherhood, a national speaker and skill facilitator. Austin is founded the Tri-State Daddy-Daughter Dance, now in its 11th year. And last but not least, we have Dr. Ellen Jill Waller, the wife of Reverend Dr. Alan E. Waller of Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church. She is the civic and humanitarian advocate focused on education, women's empowerment, and fighting human trafficking. She has taught special education in multiple states and at Temple University. Dr. Waller also serves as president of the Community College of Philadelphia Foundation and sits on several educational and civic boards. Wow, wow, wow. We are honored to have you all here. Again, we welcome Joel, Dr. Ellen, and Annette to this conversation.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes,
Thank
good
you.
afternoon. Glad to be here.
We know that, the Black family, we are strong. We are strong and we have experienced a lot of different things. There's so much going on. What's the difference from your parenting style and that of your parents? And you can also speak to your clientele as well. And so we're going to direct that question first with Dr. Ellen.
So I don't know that my parenting style was all that different from my parents, but I'm a grandparent, so I'm a different generation. So my grandparenting style is vastly different from that of my parents and the parenting that I did. One of the huge differences is recognizing that the little stuff isn't that deep. I think when you're in the throes of parenting, you find yourself, you're so focused on go, 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 get it done, get it done, get it done, making sure everything is perfect. And sometimes we lose sight of all of the little things that are actually happening in our interactions. And so I think that as I think back to my parents' parenting, it was much focused on making sure that, yes, we knew we were loved. We knew we were, to use my mom's words, special and precious. My parents gave my siblings and I 3 clear messages. They loved us. They were proud of us, that no one was better than us, but we were no better than anyone else. And so even in those 3 distinct messages, there was this backdrop, if you will, of making sure that we were on point at all times and sometimes externally focused around what things looked like. So I'll fast forward to my parenting style. I think I adopted some of that. I'm not so sure that I gave my girls the words of those 3 messages that I received as my parents. One of the things that my daughters often joke about, I told them that everybody is not your friend. You don't have to be everyone's friend, but you have to be respectful of everyone. So that would be the thing I added. But I do believe that I raised 2 extremely confident, successful, amazing Black women. And so some of my focus was also exterior as it relates to being sure that they were on point, particularly in public. I would say to them, just don't get out there and embarrass me on all levels. They jokingly recall me saying, sometimes, kids being kids and they being siblings, they're 14 months apart. So there was always a lot of energy, if you will. And they jokingly recall, and I recall vividly saying to them in the car, even on the way to church, can we just pretend you know Jesus just for these moments? So that was my exterior focus. Again, as a grandparent, I am very different. I recognize, life is short. Moments are precious. Words are lasting. And it is so important for our children particularly in this day and age, to know that they are loved, to know that they are special, to know that they are valued and they are enough. And so
Mm.
I am a much gentler grandparent
Mm.
than I was as a parent, but I applaud my daughters for the way that they are parenting, son-in-law as well, but just taking the time that I don't think our parents took, so 2 generations up took in their parenting style. And I know that I didn't. It was very externally focused. I am much more focused on what my grands are feeling, thinking, and experiencing than what others might be witnessing on the outside.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You said a lot. And so if I didn't remind people, I think you should take out a pencil and paper or be typing on your computers, because I just have a feeling there's going to be a lot of information shared, a lot of nuggets dropped. But you said something like, as like the little stuff doesn't matter as much, the exterior stuff, the external stuff. And so you said something that words are lasting, and words do have such a great, a powerful impact on us, especially as children. And so I'm going to ask Joel, how is your parenting style different? If not, is it the same? Have you found, from when you grew up to you being a father of 4?
My parenting style, yeah, a lot is the same. A lot is similar, but there is a lot that's also different. I would have to say that the generations before, there was a blurred line between love and respect.
Mm.
My parents kept me disciplined and kept me from doing certain things because it did not look respectful to them, and they did not feel like me running around was respectful. So it was more of a kind of keep quiet, kind of keep still. Where I see it differently, and I parent differently out of on a love aspect of this is what the child is actually supposed to do. So I'm going to keep it short, but I was looking at the Olympic trials, and they had this guy. He was a gymnast on the male gymnastic team for the Olympics, and they interviewed his father, and they said, "How did you get your son into gymnastics? It's not the norm." And he said, "Well, I was in a store one day, and I had him in a cart. He was in the shopping cart. He must have been like 6 or 7 years old. And I turned around, and he started climbing up the shelves. And he started climbing to the top of the shelves. And then he started to get on this pole and climb. And everybody in the store kind of stopped until we got him down. And he said, at that point, I knew I needed to get him into something where he can climb and tumble. And I said to myself, they're white. Because if they were Black, that child would have gotten beaten for disrespecting his adults and making me look bad. And I felt at that point, we would have beat the gold medal out of him.
Wow.
We would have beat the gift out of him. So I allow my kids now, go jump in that puddle. Like I said, I have laundry detergent. So you can get messy. You can get dirty. It's okay to wallow around. Enjoy your imagination. Dig to the bottom of the sand. I feel like my parenting style is more of a love of who you are and what you need to do. And these are things that you should be allowed to do at 6 and 7 and 8 years old. I don't want you to be 45 wishing you could roll around in a puddle. Get it out now. Do you? And if you walk around with a son or daughter who's muddy, people don't disrespect you and say you're a bad parent. Because they've had one. They understand. I remember my son used to dress the way he wanted to dress that day. And kind of like the doctor said, is it that bad? He has on clean clothes. He has on this. Yes, he has some weird clothes on, but that's what he wants to do today. And I'm okay with that. And it's not embarrassing. It's not disrespectful to me that he has on a sweater in the summer. It's just what he wanted to do. And now he feels kind of accepted, making sure a child is in a child's place. It's the difference. And I realize a child should be in a child's place, but it's called the park. So now when they get to the park, I should not limit him. That's his place. That's his time. Like let me do me. So you want to run, you want to chase. My parenting style is different than their mothers. from a male perspective is different. Specifically, I have 3 boys, and when my 3 boys go with their mother to the park, they will ask her, can they climb a tree? And as a mother, she's focused on safety. And so she says, you can climb it, but just don't climb too high.
Right.
When they go with me and ask me, my answer is, show me how far you can climb. The uniqueness of us both is that we're both right. We're both right. I do want them to be safe, but I don't want them to be so safe that they only do French fries. I want them to reach out to burgers, and then I want them to reach out to customer service, and then I want them to reach out and keep reaching till they own the McDonald's. Like, don't hinder them, and I don't want to hinder them. So we are both correct. We're both right. And that balance of us with the love and respect makes this parenting style different. And I feel like we're growing some really, really people who are not stagnant into stagnant, but dreamers.
Right.
And I'm okay with that.
Listen, I love it. You said a lot of great things, but blurring the lines between love and respect and the empowerment of our children. And I saw Annette, it was a lot of snaps over there. Annette, what was coming up for you?
Yes, I love it. I'm all about like cultivating those outlets. It's interesting because like for me, this is like somewhat of a charged question. Because for me, I would say like everything about my parenting style is different from my parents' parenting style, at least for one of my parents. But I would say both. I'm not even gonna say unfortunately because I learned a lot. I learned from my parents what not to do, basically.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a very abusive and traumatizing household, actually. And it wasn't even just authoritarian, it was just downright abusive. So I learned, like I said, I learned from my parents what not to do. Like I said, I don't want to say unfortunately, because now like it made me a better person, and I help a lot of clients with trauma. And, not to say like we're thankful for like the trauma that we've experienced, but in a way, it helped us to learn and to grow. I will say that, at least for me. And so while, for instance, I admire the gentle parenting technique, because sometimes, so I have 2 very spirited, some people like ABSW on here will know, I took my daughter to a meeting when she was 2, and very spirited children. I have 2, very spirited children who I love dearly. And, but I would say my parenting style is more like authoritative. Like I know, like I will have people tell me, you just need to do what basically what your parents did. And I'm not going to do that. Because I don't want my children to fear me. Like the respect is important, but I don't want my children to fear me. And I've had to unlearn a lot of things. I will say that, and I tell my clients sometimes, your therapist has a therapist. It's okay. Because like there's a lot I always say we're all works in progress. There's a lot that all of us have to unpack. And so for me, with my children, I believe in like praise and reasoning and, also reasonable consequences when needed. Because again, my kids are spirited. They know like I have a tween, and sometimes he'll go toe to toe with me, and arguing. But you know what? He's going to make a hell of an attorney, or a debate captain. Like, I'm not going to like suppress that, like what was happening to me, like everything was like suppressed. And so I make it a point, not to like suppress my children. Like I help them, want to help them like learn how to self-regulate, like there's a time and place for some things, but you can self-regulate. And at the same time, like I'm teaching myself, reminding myself to self-regulate, because like, again, I've had to learn some things. So outlets are important. I put my kids in like all kind of activities, like football, tackle football, I'm not crazy about, but he's passionate about it. So, but like, gymnastics and cheer, because I want them to have these outlets. And my husband's also a social worker. And he was like, you're living like vicariously through our children. I'm like, remind myself about, I want to give them things that I didn't have, and I don't want them to be suppressed. I want them to go as far like as they can go. So I definitely would say like my parenting style is quite different than my parents.
Thank you. You guys shared so much, and I thank you, because that was a very charged question. It could get very personal. And so I'm going to ask from your professional experience, all three of you have a very vast amount of experience dealing with families of all different kinds, different structures of parenting, single parents, blended families. And so I'm just going to ask this big old question. I'm going to start with Joel, if you can answer it first. What's the biggest challenge facing our families today? That's a big question, but in your opinion.
I think one of the biggest challenges, specifically in my job and my business working with fathers, is that I have a lot of clients who have had children with a stranger. They have not gone through what we used to do is called courting. They have not gone through a long dating period, and you end up having, unfortunately, having a baby with a stranger, and you're unsure about their background, they're unsure about yours, and then that can cause conflict. We also are in a world where we are subject to a lot of feedback on almost everything. You have 2 to 3 different generations giving you 2 to 3 different pieces of advice. The issue is that your child, no matter whether you have 4 or 7, each of them is a unique individual person, and there is no one else on the earth like them. When it comes to chromosomes and traits, you have twins and one wears glasses and one doesn't. So it is the uniqueness of them, and you have to realize that you cannot put them all into one pile.
Right.
People say, like my boys did football, and my boys did track, and then one of them did soccer, and then one of them, well, then how about golf? Like you can't say, well, they're this, so then they should do that. The uniqueness is amazing, and it is uncomfortable because we literally have to realize that whether we are married, whether we are in the same house, whether we are far apart parenting, that I have to learn how to adjust and compromise to their mother's personality. Because if I don't like their mother's personality, if I don't get along with their mother, honestly, I have 4 little ones of her. So eventually I still have to work on that relationship. And vice versa. You still have to realize who their father is, what their father likes, because that's 50% of them. Your kids are running around, jumping on stuff. And you're like, I'm trying to get them calmed down. I'm trying to get them calm. But dad used to be a track star. So you're never going to get kids like that. You have to take them to a track. You have to understand the other half of their personality. So one of the biggest difficulties is us learning the personality, at least 50% of the personality of our children from our other partner. And it takes some time, and it takes some compromise, and it takes some, this is what you chose, and it takes some introspection, and whatever they like, it's a good chance it's because he likes it, and love who they are and the mixture they have become.
Okay, I thank you for bringing those points out. And so just saying that, who we choose to have a child with, a lot of times, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people can attest, they didn't really know that person that well. And now you're dealing with a child that has half of their makeup, and so it's in our best interest. So thank you for shedding some light on that. Annette, would you like to?
Definitely, I would say, there are things like within households, such as, yes, not knowing the person that you're going to like basically be co-parenting or hope to co-parent with, not knowing them like well enough. But I want to like take it when you said the biggest challenges families are facing today. There are many. But for me, like I think the biggest challenge is I would have to like go with the bigger picture, so to speak, meaning like the political landscape and systemic racism, because like even if folks don't realize it, that impacts all families. Like, black, white, yellow, it impacts us all. Like even people like, oh, I'm, colorblind, I don't see race. Well, guess what? Like your kids are going to see race. Like it's going to come up one way or another. You see it, even if you don't really want to see it. And so I would definitely say like the political landscape, the systemic racism, because the way the systems are set up, unfortunately, like challenges such as lack of concrete resources, and we do have like a lot of my head always goes off to the single parent families, the single parents, because like it's so much harder for them. I can imagine, thankfully, I'm not raising my kids in a single parent household, but like the load is so much harder and heavier because like it's hard with two parents, it's hard with the village sometimes, like if you don't have the village, if you don't have that support. So I think it all goes back to like, I will say like the powers that be, with the racism, like, and the political landscape, because like where did it come from? Like if you think about the origins of the single parent families and how like, before like DPW and there was a reason why they wanted to remove fathers from the home. There's and that leads to like feelings of like compromised safety, like within the home and also externally. We always got to have like the different talks with our children, well, our brown and black children especially. And why is that? Because overall, the biggest picture, that's why I say that there's many challenges, but I definitely would say systemic racism and the political landscape is maybe the biggest challenges.
And thank you for bringing that up, because that is something that affects us, and it can affect you even if you have doing everything you possibly can to raise your child. There are things outside of your home that can affect and be a challenge. So Dr. Ellen, can you shed some light on what you believe is the biggest challenges facing our families today?
So I would say that the biggest challenge facing our families is our disconnectedness to faith, whatever faith that is. My husband often says that we're not in a space as a people where we've not been before. We've been in some really treacherous times in the past. But the thing that I believe that is very different is that in those treacherous past times, we were much more a people of faith. And the difficulty is that we now seem to be disconnected from faith. And therefore, there are things, lessons, deposits, if you will, missing in the lives of our children. We are less connected to the family, the village, as Annette was saying, you need the village. I was talking with one of my daughters, and she was sharing that she has many friends whose parents are not active grandparenting participants. I think we have become a society of me, and we have moved away from our ancestral history and connectedness to the entire family being a part of raising our children. And in instances where situations have been abusive, of course, you don't subject your children to that, but there are other people in our community, village spaces that ought to be a part of the raising, if you will, of our children. I think sometimes I loved what Brother Joel was saying about, letting them be and let's see who they will be. I think we do a terrible disservice to our children. We break their spirit. We want to shut down, like, get it together. Don't do that. Don't do this. You might get hurt tonight. You can get hurt doing anything. You can get hurt walking down the street. And making sure we're not truncating their ability. But I think the biggest challenge to us, to the Black family, is we have adopted some very Eurocentric thoughts around parenting and family, and we've lost sight of the intergenerational benefit for our children. My grandchildren have the blessed opportunity to have 3 great-grandmothers, and it is super important for them to know them as such and to understand them as such. And I think that we've gotten away from our communal roots. We're so busy trying to do our individual thing that we are doing a disservice to our children and therefore the community at large when we live in these very siloed mindsets and spaces. Not to get overly political, but there are some people for whom the political mindset of certain parties would work. but
Yeah.
it doesn't work for all of us. And we've
Yes.
got to get away from, oh, to work, there's some people voting with their pocketbooks or their pockets for the gentleman. And so
Mhm.
you start thinking about that, we've got to remember that back in the day, our people have always been about, is it good for all of us? And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest detriment that we're facing right now as a community, is we're not thinking about all of us. We're thinking about our individual selves. And there are many who have risen to a level where, their pockets line up in different places and they're not willing to take a stand around issues that are related to things that would hurt us as an entire community. We've got to think about who we purchase from.
Yeah.
We've got to teach our kids to think beyond what is fashion and go with principle. Does this company hurt us as a people? I'm in the process of making some significant changes of where I spend my money. And it's not going to be easy, if you will, but it's about the community. And so I think that's our biggest issue. We've gotten away from thinking of ourselves as a part of a greater community. And our kids are so individualized. COVID didn't make our kids antisocial more than video games. And video games can sometimes be great. But when we've got kids who spend hours upon hours upon hours of screen time, instead of doing what I grew up doing, is being outside all day long. And having that ability. And yes, we don't all live in places where our kids can just be outside. But I think it's important, as Brother Joel was saying, getting the kids to the park, getting them to places where they can have that kind of time. And so we've got to focus on thinking beyond ourselves, thinking about the community at large, and being willing to make sacrifices for the greater whole. And I think that's our issue.
Yvonne, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, go jump in.
First of all, she's absolutely correct. We all keep saying it takes a village. It takes a village. She's absolutely correct. There are transitions and things you can do specifically around that village, and we've gotten too much into pride and ego. Like, this is my son, and my son this, and my daughter this, and these kids don't even belong to us. We've let them convince us that there's a thing called single parenthood, where the whole community is raising a kid. You're talking single parenthood, where we send a kid to school for 8 hours and to daycare for 8 hours, so other people are around, other people are engaged. They're with so and so on the weekends. When you are a Black woman, you know everything. When you are a Black man, you know everything. You're confident. And I tell my guys, once you become a father, stop acting like you know everything. You are brand spanking new. You have never been a dad before. You have never been a mother before. So reach out to your community, ask questions. Let this child go play. If your kid is on video games a whole bunch of time, then tell him to stop the video games. All the people he's talking to, invite all of them over for pizza so that you can see who's in his circle, have their family, have you comfortable in their circle. We have to take the pride and the ego of I raised, I did, and the I out of raising these children into my village, my aunts. And you talk about me as a father with 4, but me as an uncle, I love that job. Oh my God, uncle is amazing. Like, I do all kinds of things. Like, your kid can climb it, well, but then even being able to reach out, being able to pass on some things, being able to help your niece get dressed, being able to be present, being able to show that there is a community involved, in that by the time they reach that level of high school graduation, there should be 20 people there saying, yeah, I was part of this. And as a parent, I have to allow my sons and daughters to learn from each of my family members. And when I say each, I mean each. All of them, some of my, Annette, some of them, but guess what? You learn what not to do. You learn, you can go for a drive with one of my family members and say, you know what? I'm never going to do that again. But these other lessons have to be taught in the safety of our village. And I cannot repeat enough to say, stop acting like you know everything. Stop acting like these kids are yours. Let them grow, let them dream, let them see. Let them be raised.
So how do we, and that I wanted to ask you, how do we preserve just this, what Dr. Ellen was talking about, what Joel is talking about, passing down this mindset of it does take a village. It's not just you. Even if you're a single mother or a single father, you have a host of people all around you. How do we pass down those cultural things, those things that kept us together, knowing that we're not in this by ourselves when we make decisions and we're voting? We're not making decisions just for our household. How do we continue to pass that mindset down to preserve our history?
So,
Absolutely.
oh, real quick. So we have this thing called the Fathers Club, and in the Fathers Club, we sit around and talk. Also, at my house, we can start our own traditions, and I hate to say own traditions because coming from an Afrocentric, these things have always happened. We just got different names for them. But at my house, we have a husbands club, and we just get together and talk about being a husband, the pros, the cons, the stresses, and some of our needs. And then you can have this wives club, and then you can have this girls club. And before there was ever a Boy Scout and a Girl Scout, we used to get these kids together. Like if you have a backyard, then you have a stage. Like you could just, I invited 2 kids over to play PlayStation with my son. Well, he invited 2 kids over and I said it's all right. 3 weeks later, there were 15 kids in my house. And there are some people that were like, that's crazy. And I was thinking to myself, they're safe. They're learning, they're growing. And I could hear some of the conversations like, have you ever tried this? And then people are like, no, I would never because I'm an athlete. And then every now and then I can interject and get my knowledge, but we can start our own club. We can start our own gatherings. If you are a whatever you are, you can start at the safety of your porch, your house. We had gatherings on front steps because I wasn't allowed to leave the stoop.
Yeah.
Some of y'all too young for that, but you wasn't allowed to go that far. But you end up having these gatherings. You're allowed to start these new traditions and say, everybody come over. I want to listen. I want to talk. You listen, you talk, and then we learn from each other.
Yeah. Annette, please share.
I'm sorry, I wanted to jump in on that. That's the similar thing what Brother Joel was saying about, have everybody at your house. That way you know what's going on. and you can ensure that even kids who come from homes that are not safe have my childhood home. This is something I've kind of kept, was the house that everybody hung out at. So our porch was full of kids. Our backyard was full of kids. Our house was the spot that everybody came to. My house, but for my girls, it was the same thing. That was the spot where they came to. We hosted all kinds of stuff. We hosted family gatherings where all the cousins brought their kids, but we also hosted their school friends and so forth. Even as my daughters were in undergrad, their friends came to our house and continue to come. One of my daughter's friends from primary school, and my oldest daughter's 33, he will show up at my house today at any given, unannounced, any given moment, or he'll send a text, he calls me Rev Mama. He's like, Rev Mama, you home? I'm coming through. And so establishing the place where not just your family gathers, but the community can gather is so crucially important. And I grew up in the, we could get off the porch, we could go and roam. I grew up in the 70s, so it was a little different. I'm sure Brother Joel, you a little younger than that.
I'm one of those street lights. I'm one of those street light kids.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to be out and about, and then our house was the porch that everybody came to when the street lights came on. So the parents were like, all right, if you're on the Payne's porch, you're good. So it is so crucially important to do that. I just want to add that.
Thank you. Annette?
Yes, thank you. So agreed. I mean, even though I had, my upbringing was like quite different, I guess, than Brother Joel and Dr. Waller. One of the things I do remember is like being able to like going outside, and I was also one of those street light kids, being in, I had to be on the porch, by, the time the street light come on, but I was able to go outside, and it was different. I grew up in Southwest Philly, so it is different now, unfortunately, but I was able to do that. And another thing is like we had neighbors that looked out for us. You know, there was no like, oh, this is like Brother Joel was saying earlier, this is my child, this is my child. And to this day, that is something I take from, you know, with me, if something I pass on, I would tell, you know, my friend, if you hear something, my kids doing something, please tell me so I can address it. Like, I'm not one of those parents like, oh no, not my child, because I know my kids. And you know, they're spirited, you know, so I'm not going to say they're innocent. I wasn't totally innocent. So I know, you know, so I'm like, yes, let me know if my kids do something, and you can address them. You can say something, you know, if my kids are doing something, and my kids know that you can say something, you know, if my kids are doing something. But like educating our children, you know, when you said, LaVon, you know, how do we pass it down and how do we preserve our families? You know, we have to educate our children, you know, because like Brother Joe was saying, they're not always with us. We do need the community. We do need the village. And letting them know that, you know, I tell my kids all the time, they go on workshops with me, they go to meetings. You know, I like to say they're going to be like the next social workers, but probably the attorney for the social workers, you know, or whatever they want to be. But my point is, you know, let them know that, you know, their history. And yes, like, although many of our ancestors were enslaved, we came from kings and queens. We are royalty. And my kids are going to know that. And all of our kids need to know that, you know, taking them to the different events, having them participate in activities, you know, Dr. King, we do that with Associate Alliance of Black Social Workers in Philadelphia chapter. They've been to these events. They're back. They know the importance of the village and the community, because I'm passing that down to them and letting them know, like, you're not going to have, you know, my husband's not going to be like, oh no, this is not my brother. Unfortunately, I had a father who was like, oh no, this is not my brother. But my kids are going to know and are going to learn differently, are going to learn better. Once you know better, you do better. So creating and holding to these traditions that uplift our communities, and also like walking the walk and not just talking the talk. Like, for instance, my children, you know, they might not get the concept. I said this in a car taking them to Summer Rec this morning, that, you know, all skin folk and kinfolk, like Supreme Court justice, not to get too political, but like, you know, they're going to know that our people, there's, you know, a time for them to learn that, you know, that you got to know who to trust. But what they will hear me say, you know, all the time is, I'm rooting for everybody Black, you know, and that's not to say I'm not rooting for other people as well, but you're going to have a sense of pride, because this world is going to try to tear that pride down, and this country is going to try to tear that pride down. Yes, I support Black-owned businesses, and my kids will know that, yes, we go here because it's a Black. I will go out of my way to support a Black-owned business, because like, and we have Black-owned businesses, right? We want people to support us. We want to cultivate the village, because we know all the time that, you know, there are forces trying to tear the village down, you know, and while we think, you know, they might have been successful, like in some aspects, again, the Black family is strong. You know, we came again from kings and queens. So you're going to know that you're royalty. And so one day, maybe my grandchildren will know that they're royalty and pass it down. Because like, if no one else is going to teach my kids that, their mama will.
Yeah, listen, I'm loving this conversation, and Joel has his king shirt on. As you said, kings and queens. I was like, was that strategic? And you kind of stood up just as as she was saying that. So we're talking about continuing to fortify our Black families, and we know that there are certain things that I believe that it's becoming not as taboo, but the aspect of mental health and checking on our well-being has been something that, you know, at times we've neglected. Sometimes we have said, you know, it stays in the house. Don't tell nobody what's going on. We have faced traumas in our childhood, and we haven't had a chance to deal with those things. So can we dive in? It'll probably be our last question before we get to some audience questions. But, you know, how are we addressing the mental health within families in comparison to other families out there?
Okay.
And I'll start with you, and then we'll.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try not to take up too much time. So, but yes, like I grew up in one of those households. It's like, what happens in this house stays in this house, because a lot of things shouldn't have been happening in the house.
Yeah.
But like, so I don't believe in that. Like, there should be like nothing to hide. You know, we need to pass on, like, and share with our village. And so I think it's like kind of, you know, we get a lot into like, you know, the stigmatization, you know, of mental health and health, because like we were taught, like, no, you take it to the church, and like, while that's also helpful, like sometimes there's more help that's needed. and so like we need the community and we need the village. And so it's hard to like, compare like Black families to other families, or I would say is an unfair comparison. Because we didn't start off, many of us, with the resources of other families. Even if we're well off, you don't have the privilege as even like a rich, well-off Black person don't have the privilege of like someone who's not Black. Let's just put it out there. You don't have certain privileges that some would like in the mainstream do. So inherently, the mental health and well-being is also different. Going back to like, for instance, Dr. Joy DeGroove's post-traumatic slave syndrome. We as a people, we've been traumatized. We, even with like my upbringing, I know that my parents went through things that they didn't have a chance to have addressed. So they learned one way, and maybe it wasn't the best way. But again, unlearning some things. We had to unlearn these toxic behaviors, including behaviors such as like stigmatizing and minimizing mental health concerns and health concerns. And at the same time, learn how to better care for ourselves in a society that, for the most part, it's not easy, right? It's like harder to eat healthier, it's more expensive to eat healthier, and exercise and do these things that's going to care for us so we can be there for our children, be there for the village, and it doesn't care, they don't care for us like as it should. So that's why we have to implement these things and be like, it's okay for like my son, it's okay to cry, it's okay to let out. I'm not going to be like, oh, man up, as like some folks might, because it's okay. I've read things about, people were upset that like a toddler, a Black male toddler was like playing with a kitchen set. Why? I'm so glad that my husband cooks. Thank the Lord, because a lot of times I don't have time for that. But I make sure my family eats and everybody, but it's a partnership, and it shouldn't be, I don't really believe a lot in the gender roles. Like we all need to be a part of the community. We all need to do this, and I'll just leave it at that. I can say a lot more. I'll leave it at that.
Dr. Waller?
Mental health. Yeah. So I think that what's crucially important is that we're having those conversations. The old adage, what happens in the house stays in the house, I think was twisted. The ethos of that wasn't the origins, if you will, of that wasn't necessarily how it was enacted. Because I do think there are some things that you don't need to be telling all your business in the street, and not, as it relates to what you have, what you don't have, all that kind of stuff. So I think it got twisted. But what I think there are a couple of things that are super important for us to think about as it relates to mental health. We have all had challenges. It's unrealistic to think or to believe that people don't. The truth is everybody has had challenges, all families, all individuals. I don't care how fabulous you think you are. There's always some internal something that's kind of brewing. And so I think that it's important that we are, and I'm grateful we are recognizing and acknowledging mental health issues and struggles. But I'm concerned that we often use the word mental health to always talk about the negative. There's keeping your good mental health is important as well. I feel like everybody needs a therapist. Somewhere along the way, if not regularly, I think we just you gotta do what you need to do. We need to make sure that we are helping our young people understand that mental health isn't a negative term. We need to make sure that we are protecting our mental health. We need to make sure that we are focused on our mental health, that we're thinking about what feels good to me. I heard somebody say today, and I was incredibly blessed by it, and I'm so grateful right now that I have this opportunity to share this concept. But what she said is she chooses to decline some of the messages and baggage that people try to give her. Such a gentle thought, right? Yeah. Because it's not like you're angrily cutting people up. I choose to decline the drama that you're trying to bring me. Yeah, I'm choosing to decline the negativity you're trying to bring me. And so it's also an empowering statement because you are choosing to decline. Yeah. You do not have to take people's junk. And one of the things that I think is crucially important is that we help our young people understand that's good mental health practice.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
allowing others to put their junk on you, not allowing others to make you feel, as you all say in Philadelphia, some type of way about yourself because of how they feel.
Right.
And so the exact term she said was declining the contribution of others.
Yeah.
And so when you start thinking about some of the ways that people just try to put their stuff on you, we need to ensure that our young people understand that you are the keeper of you.
Yeah.
And you can choose to take other people's stuff, or you can choose to let it go. And I think we need to help them to think through how we choose, or how they can choose to let things go. If it means at the end of every day, writing down what bothered you and then tearing it up when you're little or burning it when you're older. But having some type of practice at the end of the day, if you can't let it go throughout the day, at the end of the day, letting it go, so that we are practicing good mental health, that we are focused on ensuring that we're not carrying other people's junk with us to bed at night. We're not sitting up, can't sleep, spinning around our head around, oh, I said this to someone, were they offended? Own your stuff, be thoughtful about your words and your actions, and at the end of the day, get to the end and let it go. If that means, for me, it's giving it to Jesus, praying over stuff, and thinking about, is there anyone I need to say something different to tomorrow based on what I said to them today? But helping kids to understand, one of the things I love to hear people say, the difference between apology and amends, because apology is just, I'm sorry. Amends is what we'll do differently. And so having our young people think about that, and also exercising gratitude. My granddaughter's 5. She's hanging out with me this week, and I bought her a gratitude journal, and she was super excited about this gratitude journal, and has written in it every single day since I gave it to her. And the journal is so simple. Again, she's 5. It says 3 people you're grateful for, someone who made you smile today. It gives the smiley face, the, kind of half face, but a line where she can circle her emotions. And then what was my favorite part of the day? I think when we focus on gratitude, we begin to focus on the good, then we can stop letting the bad linger so long. And so the other night she was doing her journal, and I was kind of like, wait a minute, because she circled all the circles on the emotion thing, from the smiley face to the sad face. And I said, why did you do that? And she said, because today I quite precocious. So she said these words, today I experienced all of the emotions.
Wow.
And I'm like, you know what? Because first I was kind of like, oh, what was, what happened? And she was able to articulate that. One of the things that my daughter, who's her mom, does a fabulous job of doing is she asks her every day, did anything make you sad today? So again, making sure that we're having these conversations, and it doesn't have to turn into a full-blown therapy session. And people don't have to feel like you coming at them with like, oh, you all right? Do you need, what do I think? Doing the soft therapist talk, making them feel like they're at the edge, or you think they're at the edge, but really having real thoughtful conversations, very simple, focusing on gratitude and focusing on letting go are 2 things that I think that we can teach our children, but also grasp for ourselves as it relates to really coming to grips with some good mental health. I listened to a book last week called The Untethered Soul. Amazing. I'm going to keep listening to it. But again, it talks about a lot of those things. You're like just really getting into balance with who you are, where you are, and being okay with that.
Thank you. So we have a few, if you guys will bear with us just for a few minutes, Joel, I want to give you an opportunity to give your thoughts on mental health, and then we are going to close out. But I feel like we need another conversation because there's a lot more to talk about, Joel.
Well, mental health wise, one of the things I want to focus on is surrounding yourself with others, this peer-to-peer support, surrounding yourself with friends. We have a Muslim household. We're Muslim. If my kids go over to Reverend Waller's house, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, because what they're going to find out is a different religion, but what they're really going to find out is there's a Black woman over there that loves them, and then there's a Black woman over here that loves them, and that's what love looks like. And
Yeah.
so sometimes we can silo even in mental health. Well, you would only understand if you're Christian. No, I'm a believer, and let's start there. The other thing is trying to find these peer-to-peer and let yourself be open enough to find a group, and whatever the group is. If the group is Al-Anon, like she said, it's always negative, but sometimes the group is the gardening group. Sometimes when you talk about mental health, it's just gardening. It's the yoga class. Not hot yoga, because that smells in there. But it's this, and it's this holistic approach. We keep looking at therapy, and therapy is great, but let me go way, way back, because you asked about difference in parenting. One of my difference in parenting is that from my parents is that I listen more. I actually listen to my kids more than they listen to me. If a window got broke and I was close to it, there was judge and jury, and that's it.
Yeah.
Now I actually hear the plaintiff. And that is something you can do. You're going to be right. You are the parent, but you can hear somebody's reasoning why they want to do something. And a lot of people are like, oh no, you don't let kids talk back to you. No, I want to hear them out. They're going to wash these dishes anyway.
Exactly.
But I do want to give them the chance to hear them out. You're going to do these chores. But listening is one of those things that we can develop and we can do, especially as parents, and then start developing your own safe spaces. My business has grown because specifically Black men have not had safe spaces to even talk about some of these feelings at.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to have this and you're not supposed to have that. I teach my daughter, my Black daughter, how to apologize to me correctly, because I want her to be able to just apologize to her husband without a whole bunch of back and forth. And it doesn't happen easily. The last part, because I know we're running out of time, is this wellness factor.
Yeah.
We talk about mental health, but we also talk about wellness and mental wellness and being able to just calm yourself and chill. I realize we now have an issue with wellness because wellness means taking time away. And one of the problems specifically with Black men is that they don't do this because they could be sitting on the couch for a while. And if your husband is sitting on the couch for too long, you perceive him as being lazy. And lazy is one of the worst things you can say to a Black person. And we have a fear of lazy. And the reason why we have a fear of lazy is because from slavery, lazy could equal death. If you're sitting around not doing your job, you could be shot, you could be killed. And lazy could also mean disrespect. If I don't want any of my family members to think that my husband or my wife is lazy, but the reality is this wellness. You work this hard, you've been back and forth, you're allowed to do manicure, pedicure, spa, and all of that. You're allowed to sit around one day and do nothing. If the book says that God rested, you are allowed to sit around one day and do nothing. You deserve that. But that's that mental wellness. If your husband wants to go fishing for 8 hours, let him go. If you want to go to the cigar lounge, because I'm usually there with Reverend Miles, I ain't gonna talk about that, but just let us go, let us sit, and let us be, and let us do, so that we can come back stronger. This mental wellness is another thing. Find your wellness, find your group, find your space, and as a parent, teach your kids it's okay for me to listen to you, and it's okay for me to have that certain authorities and tell you why you still have to do these chores. But I heard you, and I heard, and that'll keep us from having so many people that feel sheltered in their emotions.
This has been amazing. And I do want to answer a question that was in the chat that they put in pretty early in our conversation. But I know that the audience and myself have gotten so much out of this conversation. Mr. Eric, I'm saying it again, we might need to do a follow-up to this conversation. But one of the questions that were in the chat, it said, how can we help our younger parents find balance in parenting and educating today's youth in a social media oriented society? And whoever wants to take that, we're going to take that last question and then dismiss soon.
Well, real quick, face to face. Social media is what it is, but face to face. Try to find a way to get these people in your backyard. Try to find them to get into the basement of the church or the masjid. try to get face to face, try to make sure specifically when it comes to parenting, you're doing a great job. You are wonderful. If you want to come learn some other tools, that's fine. But I am not going to subjugate you to say, well, no, her hair should be better or X, Y, and Z. No, no, no. Face to face, let me look you in the eye and say, you're an amazing mother. You are an amazing father. Don't let the world tell you different or their media tell you different. But let's talk about what else you would like to do. But face to face. And it doesn't take anything but chicken wings for us. It don't cost a lot.
Yeah, I told my son, like, you could come definitely to, like, have your friends come to our house. Like, my house is also their house. Like, and I tell my son, I was like, you could go out with your friends, but I need to know every parent, you know, so I want to meet the parents. I want to be that parent.
Come on over.
I'm going to, right, exactly. Come on over. We can have, like, go in the backyard. We can do some things.
We invented potluck. We invented potluck. That's don't.
I think the other thing, as it relates to the whole social media thing, friendships are life, and you can't have real friendships with people you don't know, with people, Sister Net, Brother Joel was saying, you don't break bread with, people that you don't spend time with. And I have friends that I have one friend that we have been friends for 55 years. And I have another girlfriend, we've been friends now since we were 14. And so when I start thinking about the gift of friendship, I'm blessed that I've given that gift to my girls. They've seen my girlfriends. They know my girlfriends. They know that friendship matters. And that you have to cultivate friendship. You got to see each other. I've got friends who we may not see each other often at all, but we are consistently engaged. But I learned the need for friendship from my parents. My home of origin, my family home, was the gathering place of all the folk. And Brother Joel, this is the funny part. You know, folk didn't get kicked out. Y'all might have broke up, but at that house,
well,
everybody was welcome, and everybody better act like you know. And so the learning that was shared by my parents with the friendships. My mom and her friend of 69 years hung out with me last week. And so getting our young people to understand the value of friendship and the importance of being able to engage face to face. That face to face is crucially important. You're right. And whatever it is, as long as it is life-giving to both of you or to the group of you, that's what's important.
I love it. On behalf of Fun Times Magazine, I want to thank our esteemed panel. Thank you for sharing your wisdom so very much. I want to thank the people who have attended on our Zoom. There is an event survey that popped up on our screens. And those who were watching on Facebook, we thank you for your time. This was such an insightful conversation that we know will continue. A lot of great things were shared, and I am going to give the last words to Mr. Eric, if you would like to say anything. His face.
No,
And you
I
can
just
close
want
us
to
out,
thank
Mr.
them.
Eric. No words.
No, I just want to say thank you, like you said, and then defer to you. Go ahead. You're doing a great job.
Again, we thank everyone for attending. Please make sure that you are following Fun Times Magazine on all social media platforms, and that you are on our newsletter list so that you can see when we're having another powerful discussion like that. This is what we're all about here at Fun Times. So we thank you again for your time. Thank you, Dr. Waller. Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Joel, so much for joining us today. Everyone have an amazing continuing of the day. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.